سب کی باتوں سے یہ ہمیں پتہ چلا ہے کہ ہم لوگ کتنے ان اویئر ہیں کلونیل پیریڈ کی ریسرچ سے بلوچستان میں. تو آپ سب سے درخواست ہے کہ کوئی بھی اس چیز کو ٹیک اپ کرنا چاہے ضرور ڈاکٹر حفیظ بلوچ صاحب سے کانٹیکٹ کریں. اور اٹ از ویری ویری امپورٹنٹ بیکاز لائک ہی سیڈ وی آل تھنک دیٹ اٹ واز ڈارک ایجز فار بلوچستان بٹ اٹ واز ناٹ. اور بلوچستان اور سندھ کو ایک دفعہ اور جوائن کرنے کا بہت بہت شکریہ. لنکس جو بلوچستان اور سندھ کے ہیں وہ تو پری ہسٹورک ٹائم سے چلے آ رہے ہیں اور دیور کنٹینیوس ان کی گفتگو سے بھی پتہ چلتا ہے. تو اب ہم ہماری اس دفعہ 2 بکس ہیں اینی بلوچ انسٹیٹیوٹ کی جو کہ پبلش ہوئی ہیں اور میں چاہوں گی کہ ہم ان کی لانچنگ کریں. تو فار دس آئی ووڈ لائک ٹو انوائٹ آن اسٹیج ڈاکٹر غفار سومرو صاحب, ڈاکٹر شہین لشکاری صاحب, ڈاکٹر ادریس سومرو جو کہ ہمارے اور ڈائریکٹر اینی بلوچ.
آپ اندر والی اسپیس یوز کرو گے.
بک کا وہاں سے پکڑ رہا ہوں, بک کو کلوز اپ کر لینا, بک کا ٹائٹل صحیح.
بک لانچ ہو رہی ہے وہ تو میں سوری ذوالفقار صاحب کو بلا لیں گے. تو آج ہم 2 کتابیں لانچ کر رہے ہیں. کلورس آف سی جو کہ ہسٹری نوبلٹی اینڈ فلم آرکیٹیکچر آف کلورس کے بارے میں بائی ڈاکٹر ذوالفقار علی کلہوڑو. This book discusses the history, nobility and tomb architecture of Kaloras. Dr. Zulfikar Ali Kalor relied on both primary and secondary sources. اور دوسری اچھا شاہ جو رسالو poetic compendium of Shah Abdul Latif, compiled in lexicon in Persian by Mian Nur Muhammad کی ہے اور edited and annotated by Dr. Abdul Ghaffar Somo صاحب, جس کے بارے میں انہوں نے ابھی بات بھی کی تھی. تو ذوالفقار صاحب اس وقت ہال میں موجود نہیں ہیں, تو آئی تھنک ہم ان کی کتاب کو ہولڈ کرتے ہیں. چائے کے وقفے کے بعد ہم دوبارہ جوائن ہم کریں گے اور ان کی بک بھی لانچ کر دیں گے. چائے کے بغیر ہے لائے کو یو شیور وہ چائے اندر لانے نہیں دیتے آپ. ہاں یا یہ ہے کہ جنہوں نے پینی ہے وہ باہر جا سکتے ہیں, پی کر واپس اندر آ سکتے ہیں. ٹھیک ہے ہاں, تو جب تک ہم نیکسٹ سیکشن. He has served as field director and co-director of Harappan Archaeological Research Project since 1986. He has worked on excavations and ethno-archaeological studies in Pakistan, India and Oman. He has a special interest in ancient technologies and crafts including textiles and textile production, socio-economic and political organization. سو مارک صاحب کا کام پاکستان میں ایک لینڈ مارک کام ہے جو کتنے سالوں سے ہی از ورکنگ ود اس کنٹینیوسلی, ناٹ اونلی ہیئر بٹ انڈیا میں, عمان میں, اور ان کا زیادہ کام انڈس ویلی سویلائزیشن اور اینشینٹ ٹیکنالوجیز پر ہے. پلیز آپ لوگ ذرا سا خاموشی کر لیں گے, پلیز ریکویسٹ ہے بیکاز اٹس ناٹ گڈ. ٹھیک ہے. اور ڈاکٹر مارک کنوائر نے کافی کتابیں بھی لکھی ہیں, ایڈٹ بھی کی ہیں آن آرکیولوجی آف ساؤتھ ایشیا اور انڈس سویلائزیشن پر, وچ آر اویلیبل ایٹ آکسفورڈ پریس شاپ اور دوسری شاپس میں پاکستان میں. He has published 4 monographs, 2 edited volumes with more in process, over 87 influential journal articles, has over 90 articles in edited volumes, 4 children books, 14 encyclopedia entries and 22 book reviews and book relating in South Asian history and archaeology. He has published on Indus pottery, seals, beads and wide range of artifacts related to Indus Valley region of Pakistan and India. تو ان کی اور he is contributing to arranging several exhibitions also on the Indus civilization as well as textiles and experimental archaeology exhibits. So I would now like to request Dr. Mark Kinoyer to come on stage and discuss the topic. His topic of the talk is Glorious Past of Ceramic Traditions of Southern Indus Region, New Perspectives from Recent Excavations at Aladino.
I hope everyone had a nice tea break. So today I'm honored to be invited. This is, I think, the second time that I've given a talk here at the conference. It's really great to be back and to see so many people. I will be talking about some recent studies on ceramics. This is a pottery from the Indus civilization. And before beginning, I want to thank Dr. Asma Ibrahim for inviting me to give this talk, and also to the N.A. Baloch Institute and the Center for their support for these types of studies. I think it's very important to include the history of this region, and I was very happy to see in the first presentation the discussion of Mohenjo-daro as the earliest part of Sindhi script. So जो आपको अभी वो ठेठ सिंधी नहीं है, ठेठ सिंधी जो है ना वो पुराना वाला है जो अभी तक हमें पता नहीं. Okay, so we still are looking for the original Sindhi script. जो बाद में आया जो आप बोलते हैं ना वो खिचड़ी है, वो मुख्तलिफ ज़बानों के साथ मिलकर ये पैदा हुआ था. असल जो हमारी सिंध की जो ज़बान है और जो उसकी तहरीर है ना वो अभी तक तर्जुमा नहीं हुआ. So we're still trying to find that, and we are working now in Aladino. I've been working in Harappa. People are working in Mohenjo-daro. जगह जगह पे अभी खुदाई हो रहे हैं जहाँ पर ये स्क्रिप्ट की तलाशी है. तो इंशाल्लाह कभी bilingual text मिल जाएंगे ताकि इसकी तर्जुमा हो सकता है. I want to especially thank the Director of Archaeology, Government of Sindh, for permission to work at the site of Aladino, and also the Department of Archaeology Museum, Government of Pakistan, because I've been working in Harappa since 1986. I first came to Pakistan in 1975 and began working in Balakot with my professor, Dr. George Dales. And Karachi is a very favorite place for me. So I've been coming to Karachi since 1975, and I really enjoy being back in the city again. I want to especially thank the people who have been working on our team in Aladino. Many of them are sitting here in the audience, and some of them are still having tea outside. We'll miss kar rahe hamara introduction. I want to thank them for all the hard work that they're doing. बहुत गर्मी में हम काम कर रहे हैं और काफ़ी नई मालूमात हो रहे हैं वहाँ की सलाह से. I also want to thank the team from Harappa who worked with us for many years in the site of Harappa. Dr. Randall Law is here. He's one of my students, and we have other students around Pakistan who worked with our project. I also want to especially thank my professor, Dr. George Dales, the late Dr. Dales, who introduced me to the Indus archaeology and also introduced me to the study of pottery. So Dr. Dales in Harappa made it a very important part of his training to train students on how to study pottery. Most of you probably see this pottery, tikri jo nazar aata hai na, upar se khandrat ke upar kehte hain ki kuch nahi hai, fek dete. But those pottery are the most important part of our understanding of ancient people. And with Dr. Dales, I sat here in Karachi for 3 years, 3 different times. करसाज कॉलोनी में हमारा मकान था, वहाँ पर बैठकर मोहनजोदड़ो की सारी पॉटरी की ना एक किताब लिखी. तो उस किताब की सारी तस्वीरें यहाँ पर. These are the photographs, the drawings of the pottery from Mohenjo-daro. So this book was published in 1986, and this book is the most comprehensive study of pottery of the Indus civilization. And all the different shapes that you see here, I will be referring to them in the talk later this morning. Why do we study pottery? Pottery is made from local clay usually. People don't get clay from other places. They use the clay near their village. So we can study that clay and understand the location that people were making pottery and how it was spread and traded. I've worked in Harappa with Muhammad Nawaz and now his son Al-Ladita, and he collects clay from different places, and I've studied where that clay comes from. Over time, people take clay and they mix it in different ways. अगर हांडी बनाना है तो मिट्टी के साथ, चिकनी मिट्टी के साथ थोड़ा सा ना रेत डालना होता है, थोड़ा सा कंकड़ डालना होता है ताकि ये मजबूत रहेगा और फटेगा नहीं. जब आग के ऊपर लगाएंगे, अगर इसमें वो चीज़ मिक्स नहीं है ना तो फट जाएगी। अगर बड़ा मटका बनाना हो तो इसके अंदर और चीज़ डालते हैं, अगर तंदूर बनाना हो तो इसकी और चीज़ डालते हैं. So potters know how to mix clay in different ways to make different things. That clay is a very important raw material. So working with Nawaz, I was able to understand how clay was changed over time and how the clay in Harappa जो अभी इस्तेमाल हो रहा है वो उसी मिट्टी है जो हड़प्पा दौर में इस्तेमाल होता था, और उसी तरह इसके अंदर मिलावट होते हैं. जो रेत डालते हैं ना बड़ा मटके के लिए, वही रेत की हिसाब है अभी तक. जो रेत हांडी में डालते हैं ना वही हिसाब है अभी तक. तो हमने हड़प्पा की हांडी देखा और अभी का हांडी देखा और इसमें कोई तफरीक नहीं है, 1 to 1. So potters have preserved the tradition and understanding of clay over 5,000 years. So they are a good source of information. आमतौर पे आप लोग कुमार को कुछ तवज्जो नहीं देते, बस कुमार है, किसी ने बनाया, हम हांडी खरीद लेंगे. But you don't talk to the potters. I talk to the potters. Why do we talk to potters? And who are the potters? अभी जो कुमार है ना ज़्यादातर मर्द है. शुरू में ये औरत थी. घर में घर की चीज़ के लिए ना औरत मिट्टी तैयार करके हांडी बनाती थी. So the earlier household production is done by women. They make things for cooking. They make things for the household. When it becomes an industry, then there's a change in pottery technology and pottery starts becoming a business. When it becomes a business, it becomes something that has to be done continuously. So we see change from household production to more workshop industry and then large-scale industry where men become involved. So we have to study who was making the pottery in Aladino, who was making the pottery in Mohenjo-daro, which pottery was made by women, which pottery was made by men. So we're trying to study this difference now. There are also many different ways to make pottery. If you make it by hand and you turn it around, you can do it what's on a slow turning device. So different types of things like handis would be made on a small turning device. And that small turning device can be used by anybody. We also have pottery that's done on what we call a slow wheel or pivot. We see this type of pottery wheel in the Sham में मिलता है, मिस्र में मिलते हैं और यहाँ पर भी मिलते हैं. ये शोर ना करे इधर पीछे. ओ भाई. So this turning device is very important because it can move the clay around and make it more efficient for making pottery. So who uses turning devices? Here we see a woman using it. And the women's use of turning device is very important because it helps them paint the pottery. And they can do designs on the pottery and decoration on the pottery. We also see a wheel, chak. When you start using the wheel, you are starting to use what's called centrifugal force. घुमाने से ना ये फैल जाते हैं आसानी से और मिट्टी को आप जल्दी से खींच सकते हैं और रवानी से एक के बाद एक मटका निकाल सकते हैं, कुची निकाल सकते हैं. So you can throw very quickly. This has to be done by somebody who can sit there for many, many hours and turn this device. So who can do this? Why don't women use the wheel? But if you look at any part of the world where the fast wheel is used, women do not use the wheel. So why did women not use this wheel? My idea is that the use of this wheel is not good if you are pregnant. And if you are pregnant and you try to use this wheel, you may have miscarriage. So women stopped using the wheel and men could use this wheel. So in South Asian culture, we don't see women using the wheel. They use everything else. So Harappans were using all of these different techniques. And we need to understand why they use them in different times and how this becomes part of the industrial tradition. And then you have the double kick wheel. This is the most important type of wheel for throwing large vessels because you can keep it on the wheel and slowly build a vessel till it becomes very big. And these large vessels, this is Muhammad Nawaz and Zaman in Harappa making this. It takes 1 month to make a big vessel like this. 1 month. Because you have to throw the bottom, it has to dry, you have to add the next layer, it dries, then add the next layer and it dries. It can take a long time. सर्दी में 1 महीना लगता है इसको बनाने के लिए. गर्मी में थोड़ा जल्दी हो सकता है, मगर फिर भी it takes a long time. So what do you put in this large vessel? इतने बड़ा मटका के अंदर क्या डालते हैं? We find them in Harappa, we find them in Mohenjo-daro, we find these vessels all the way in Iran, we find them in Iraq, we find them in Oman. What were they bringing from Indus to those other regions? This is some study that we're doing now with what we call residue analysis. मिट्टी के अंदर कोई भी शराब कोई भी तेल हो या अचार डाल दिया ना तो अचार की जो खुशबू है इसकी मिट्टी के अंदर घुस जाता है और रह जाता है. So we can study the contents of these vessels by looking at the clay. But these vessels were very large, they were used for trade. And then we need to think about time. How much time does it take to make pot? If it takes 1 month to make a vessel, who can spend that time working on the vessel? घरों में औरत बच्चों को पालते हैं, खाना पकाते हैं, घर सफाई करते हैं, so they're not going to be making the big pots. वो छोटी चीज बनाते हैं. So this is the kind of industrial development that we see, where we see men mainly involved in the production. So now we're coming to the discussion of the ceramics of the Indus. So in Mohenjo-daro, Harappa, and we see all these various sites, each area had their own pottery production. And each area was using the local clays. And we're trying to understand how people were interacting over this area. Today, the speakers were talking about the role of Sindh and the links between Sindh and Balochistan and other regions. तो सिंध की मिट्टी में क्या खूबी है और पंजाब की मिट्टी में क्या खूबी है, इसमें क्या फ़र्क है. आज लोग मिट्टी से अत्तर भी बनाते हैं. यहाँ कराची की जो मटका है ना, इसको अगर तोड़ेंगे इससे अत्तर बनेगा, इसका खुशबू अलग होती है. कन्नौज में जो मिट्टी है ना, उसकी मिट्टी में खुशबू और जो शौकीन है ना इत्तर की, वो पहचान सकते हैं. But I think of gill as the most important type of example of how different clays are. Punjabi clay or Sindhi clay and Ganga clay, they all have different smells. And this is also important for cooking. So I'm going to be focusing on several periods. I'll start with the Kodijian, which is the early phase, early Harappan, and then talk about the Harappan period. Those are the two main periods. So where is Aladino? How many people know where Aladino is? कितने लोगों को पता है अल्लादीनो किधर है? बहुत कम. अल्लादीनो मलीर के पास है, कैंप पार करके ना, मलीर दरिया के किनारे पे है. ये मलीर नदी है एक तरफ से, एक नाला है दूसरी तरफ से, और अल्लादीनो साइड एक छोटा सा ज़मीन के ऊपर है जहाँ पर सैलाब नहीं आती. तो लोग वहाँ पर एक बस्ती बनाया, और वो बस्ती एक कदीम पत्थर ज़माने का आबादी के ऊपर है. So before this, there were people living there from the Stone Age. Those same sites are found all over Karachi. People were using stone tools and living here, fishing, hunting. So underneath Aladino is the Stone Age period site. So this is a very nice place to be. Malir mein nadi mein pani kabhi kabhi behte, but they probably came seasonally. When the Harappans came here, then they dug wells so that you could have a permanent village. So in Aladino, the earlier excavators found wells. And the problem is that this area is being very badly developed, very quickly developed. Land mafia यहाँ के ज़मीन कब्जा करके इसमें कोई चीज़ तैयार कर रहे हैं, और सारे जितने पुराने साइट्स हैं ना सब तबाह हो रहे हैं. तो मलीर अल्लादीनो was excavated in 1973. Dr. Walter Fairservice यहाँ आया था. N.G. Majumdar ने इसको तबाश किया. He found the site in the 30s. Walter Fairservice came in 1973, and he got permission to excavate the site. This is a drawing of his site plan. In 2018, you could still see वो ऊपर वाली तस्वीर है ना, 2018 में, तब तक Google Earth से आपको पता चल जाता है ना कि खड्डा कहाँ है जहाँ पे वाल्टर फेयरसेफ ने खुदाई किया. 2018 के बाद किसी ने वहाँ पे कब्जा कर लिया ज़मीन को, वहाँ पे टैंकी लगा दिया, और अभी ये हालत है. साइट के बिल्कुल दरमियान में बहुत बड़ा टैंक है. सारी मिट्टी निकाल कर उसी साइट के ऊपर फैला दिया और दबा दिया सारे साइट. तो अभी अगर आप जाएंगे वहाँ पे कुछ नज़र नहीं आएगा. So we went there to try to salvage the site. थोड़ा सा देखना है कि क्या बचेगा. And we've been able to find actually very much. So this is the team, the new excavations, and I want to thank the team members who are here. Thoda sa taali bajao. We had one team in May, one team in December, and now a different team in May and June. And this is the excavation where we are currently focusing, and we are finding very important pottery from different time periods from the excavations. वो जो ऊपर वाली जगह है ना, जहाँ पर ये चूल्हा नजर आता है, यहाँ पर ये पॉइंटर है ना, यहाँ पे एक चूल्हा है और यहाँ पर एक फर्श है. फर्श के ऊपर से हमने कोयला निकाला, उसकी तारीख है 2500 किबलस मसीह. ठीक है, so that's the time of the हड़प्पा period. ये ऊपर वाली चूल्हे से अभी हमने कोयला निकाला है, वहाँ का डेटिंग अभी नहीं हुआ, और इसके नीचे 2 मीटर नीचे 1.5 मीटर नीचे तक कोयला निकाला, अभी इसके भी तारीख निकाली. फिर हम देख सकते कि एक अहद के बाद इसके ज़माने में ना यहाँ पे लोग आबाद किए. What we do with pottery, ये अली शाह है, पॉटरी को साफ करके इसकी जगह देखते, हम इससे तस्वीर लेते. ये जैन और क्या नाम क्या जैन के साथ, हाँ, ये जो मोहम्मद अली और बाकी लोग ना ड्रोन के साथ इसकी तस्वीर लेते हैं. फिर मैं ड्राइंग करता. So we take drones, we do everything, and then we take this and then we wash it. यहाँ पे धुलवाते हैं, and then we sort it. ठीक है, this is the process that archaeologists do. बड़ा टाइम लगता है, आसानी से नहीं होता. And then where did this clay come from? इस pottery में ना ये जो टिक्कियाँ हैं, इसमें मुख्तलिफ रंग हैं, कुछ पीली है, कुछ लाल है, कुछ काला है. So we wanted to know where the clay comes from. So this is Zubair Baloch. किधर है? Zubair किधर है? खड़े हो जाओ. शाबाश. ये Zubair वहाँ के आबादी है ना, वहाँ रहते. And we asked him, मिट्टी कहाँ से मिलेगा? बस मनीर दरिया में. So उसने हमें दिखाया जगह. We went there, we got the clay, and we brought it back, and then the team members and Sana Gul kidhar hai? She's going to be studying. In Jamshore University ki hai. Sorry, Shah Abdul Latif University se. So she's going to be studying the pottery from Aladino for her dissertation, PhD ke liye. तो ये मिट्टी को हमने पानी में डाला, इसको हल कर दिया. अभी हम जाकर इसके साथ मुख्तलिफ किस्म की मिलावट करेंगे. ये कभी रेत, कभी भूसा, कभी ये डालेंगे ना. So we'll see how the clay is prepared. And then we will take it and we'll do what I did in Harappa. Harappa में हम ये जो नवाज की मिट्टी है ना, मैंने उसको जगह जगह से कलेक्ट करके ना न्यूट्रॉन एक्टिवेशन के साथ इसकी तजर्बा किया. न्यूट्रॉन एक्टिवेशन is a chemical analysis. So we can identify where the clay comes from. तो जो मिट्टी हड़प्पा के आसपास है ना, वो एक जैसे है. And when we compare the मिट्टी हड़प्पा से मुल्तान तक एक जैसी मिट्टी है, क्योंकि वो रावी और ब्यास की दरिया का सारा ड्रेनेज है, तो सारी मिट्टी एक जैसे है. मुल्तान जब पहुंच गया तो और दरिया आता है ना, इंदुस आता है, दूसरी नदी आती है, तो मिट्टी में फ़र्क होता है. अगर आप मोहनजोदड़ो जाएंगे तो और नदियाँ आती हैं, और जब कराची पहुँचेंगे तो पाकिस्तान के जितनी दरिया हैं ना, सारे की मिट्टी यहाँ आ जाता है. बट मलीर सिर्फ एक जगह से आती है, वो कोहिस्तान की पहाड़ी से आता है, वो और कोई जगह से नहीं आता है. तो मलीर clay should be very different from Indus clay. Maleer clay should be very different from Punjab clay. So we should be able to identify where this clay comes from and which pottery. अगर हम इसकी एनालिसिस करेंगे तो ये नक्शा बनता है. ओमान की जो मिट्टी है ना, वो एक तरफ है. सॉरी, ओमान की मिट्टी एक तरफ है, सिंध की मिट्टी अलग है, पंजाब की मिट्टी अलग है. ये हम साइंसी तौर से ना इसको तजर्बा करके देखते ना, तो ये नक्शा बनता है इससे. So we can analyze clay from which area. अगर हम हड़प्पा में मैंने 4 हांडी की टुकड़ा के पीस है ना, हमने सैंपल लिया. वो 4 मैंने समझा कि हांडी जो है ना, I thought that the handis would come from हड़प्पा, क्योंकि वो घरों में बनाते, औरत वहीं रहते. तो मैंने ये 4 हांडी को स्टडी किया. 3 हांडियाँ हड़प्पा के लिए, 1 हांडी जो है ना वो सिंध से आया. तो कैसे आया? How does a handi from Sindh come to Harappa? वो हड़प्पा तक एक हांडी कैसे पहुंच जाती है? यही तरीका है ना. खाना बदोश लोग 7 हांडी ले जाते हैं ना, तो हांडी लेकर जाएंगे. अगर हांडी टूट गया हड़प्पा में तो वो सिंध की हांडी इधर हड़प्पा पहुंच जाता है. कभी जहेज में शादी के लिए ना वो हांडी लेते हैं. तो दिस इज एग्जाम्पल ऑफ ए वेडिंग डाउरी. वो घर वाले जो है ना वो हांडियाँ देंगे बीवी को और वो ले जाएंगे अपना अपना नायाब सिंधों में. So this is ways that we can trace the movement of pottery. I've done this at Mohenjo-daro. मोहनजोदड़ो में मेरा प्रोफेसर ने नीचे तक बोरिंग किया था वहाँ पे साइट की तलाशी के लिए, और जगह जगह पे उसने बहुत नीचे तक बोर किया और वहाँ से ठिकरी जो निकाली है मैंने इसको स्टडी किया. I studied the pottery, and in the very bottom levels of those corings I found the early Harappan pottery, Kotiji period. उस पॉटरी को हमने जब स्टडी किया था तो मैंने देखा कि कुछ कोटिजियन पॉटरी हड़प्पा के पंजाब की मिट्टी की है, कुछ जो है वो मोहनजोदड़ो की मिट्टी है, और कुछ जो है बलूचिस्तान की मिट्टी है. तो इसका मतलब है कि मोहनजोदड़ो की इब्तदाई आबादी में जगह जगह से लोग आकर वहाँ पे रह रहा था और अपना सामान लेकर आया था और अपना मुख्तलिफ बर्तन लेकर वहाँ पे बस्ती किया. तो दिस इज़ वाई pottery is so important. So now we look at the Kodiji. Kodijian was discovered in Kodiji. इस वजह से कोटिजी का नाम दिया गया है, मगर कोटिजी मरकज़ नहीं है. कोटिजी की जो तहजीब है वो मरकज़ है पंजाब में, मगर ये सिंध तक फैला हुआ है. Okay? So we wanted to know how Kotijian pottery is moving into Sindh, and we can see that there is now, we have some pottery from Kotijian style in Dholavira in India, in Gujarat, and now we have it also in Aladino. So we have it near the coast, and we can see that Kotijian pottery is coming in many different areas. These are pottery. This is मैंने जो Kotijian style है ना वो जलीलपुर हड़प्पा के पास से डॉक्टर मोगल को मिला था. Kotijian साइट थोड़ा सा साउथ में है और जलीलपुर बिल्कुल पंजाब में. And ये pottery we found now at Aladino. So now we can see that the Aladino pottery is also like the pottery from the Punjab. मगर अभी इसको टेस्ट करेंगे फिर पता चलेगा कि ये यहाँ का बना हुआ है या पंजाब का बना हुआ है या सिंध का बना हुआ है आगे मोहनजोदड़ो से. So this is important too because we have pottery from Kotijian style in Gujarat in Mokitipli. We have it in Ramar Lady in the Bannu area. So we have it from many different parts of the region. We also have this white pottery. सफ़ेद रंग की तकरीबन हल्की हल्की पीली रंग का ना क्वेटा वेटवेयर. ये सिर्फ बलूचिस्तान की मिट्टी है और इसकी कुछ टुकड़े मिले हैं इधर अलादीनो में. इसका मतलब है बलूचिस्तान से लोग इधर आया अपना बर्तन लेकर और वहाँ फ्रूट किया. We also have pottery that has painted design on it. This is pottery from Balochistan. Dr. Asma Ibrahim ने यहाँ पर काम किया उटे फ्रांके के साथ. This is different periods of Balochistan pottery. मुख्तलिफ रंग है, पॉलीक्रोम कहते हैं इसको, और मुख्तलिफ अहद में अलग अलग डिज़ाइन होती है. तो हम ये भी देख सकते हैं अलादीनो में. और सबसे ज़्यादा यहाँ पे मिलता है ना अमरी स्टाइल. अमरी स्टाइल जो है ये सिंध के सदर्न सिंध की जो स्टाइल है वो हमें काफ़ी मिल गए अलादीनो. वी गेटिंग लॉट्स ऑफ दीज pottery. These are examples of Amri style. And this is from Balakot. ये बलूचिस्तान में है ना सोमियानी के पास. And this material is very coarse. This is a coarse pottery. ये इस मिट्टी के अंदर उसने टूटा हुआ ना पीसा हुआ ना बर्तन को तोड़ के ना इसमें डाल दिया जैसे कोई बजरी, और इसके साथ कुछ रेत भी डाला है. तो ये बड़ा मटका के लिए इस्तेमाल होता था. So at Aladino we have now examples of that courseware. That courseware pottery with handles on the side. इसके साइड में हैंडल है ताकि दो लकड़ लेकर ना इसको उठा सकते ना चूल्हा से. ये हड़प्पन तरीका नहीं है. ना मोहनजोदड़ो में मिलती है, ना हड़प्पा में मिलती है, ना लखनजोदड़ो में, ना चहुंजोदड़ो में, ना किसी साइट में मिलता है. सिर्फ अलादीनो में मिला. तो अलादीनो में क्या पकाते थे जो अलग किस्म का ना बर्तन इस्तेमाल हुआ और जो जानबूझकर उसने अलग बनाया. So we don't know what was cooked in this. कोई ख़ास यहाँ के जो लोकल खाना होगा ना वो खाना है इसमें. We also have incised pottery. We have red design pottery. These are Amri style. But we also have very finely made, fine redware pottery that's found in Mohenjo-daro and in Harappa. So this means that some of the people in Aladino were using very nice imported ware, कहीं दूर से लेकर आया, और कुछ लोग local pottery के साथ, local मिट्टी के साथ बनाया है. And we have many different styles of Harappan pottery. अभी हमारे पास टाइम नहीं है, मगर ये ख़ास चीज़ है ना, देखो यहाँ पर ये इसको हम ख़ास दान कहते हैं, डिश ऑन स्टैंड. जो बुजुर्ग लोग हैं वो नीचे नहीं झुक सकते खाने के लिए, तो उसके लिए ना प्लेट ऊपर करते हैं, ठीक है, सामने से खाना उठा सकते. या कोई ख़ास चीज़ पेश करने के लिए इसके ऊपर आप सेब लगाएंगे या रोटियाँ लगाएंगे, पराठा लगाएंगे ना, फिर इसके ऊपर से वो हाथ उठा सकते. So this is a very special vessel. This is found by Nadeem किधर उन्होंने खुदा कर दिया. Yeah, this is इसके साथ कुछ जी है painted. और these are bowl, बड़ा इसमें दही बनाता है, बहुत बड़ा. और ये साथ वाले हैं, this is a painted design. And this long vessel, ये मेरे ख्याल में जहेज़ के लिए इस्तेमाल होता था. घरों में सिर्फ एक ही होती है. हड़प्पा में जहाँ पर मिला, बालाकोट में एक घर के अंदर एक होता है. So this is something that you would put अनाज in. कोई खास अनाज डाल के ना, you would keep the grain in this vessel, and this was presented during weddings. So we find some of these in Aladdin. And we also have cooking pots. This cooking pot style was invented by Harappan. It's still used today in Pakistan. और ये जो डिज़ाइन है ये मुख्तलिफ है, वो छोटा वाला हैंडल वाला नहीं, ये तो पूरा किनारा जो है ना, आप उसके अंदर से ना डंडा लगा कर उठा सकते हैं, और ना भी डंडा इस्तेमाल किया हाथ से भी उठा सकते हैं, क्योंकि वो गर्म नहीं होता है. एंड गर्म क्यों नहीं होते? बिकॉज डिज़ाइन ये है ना, यहाँ पर एक उपरा हुआ ना मिट्टी का किनारा लगाया, आग नीचे से आता है ना, उस पर टच करके ना फैल जाता है, किनारा तक नहीं पहुँचती. अभी जो केला है ना, वो आग बिल्कुल इसके ऊपर लगता है ना, मगर ये डिज़ाइन में किनारे तक आग नहीं पहुँचती. तो दिस इज़ अ वेरी स्पेशल डिज़ाइन दैट हराप्पन्स इन्वेंटेड. और ये डिज़ाइन अभी उधर अलादीनों में मिला, ये नौशहरों में मिलते, मेहरगढ़ में मिल जाते हैं, हड़प्पा में भी, हर जगह पे मिलते हैं. And the other thing which we find here, which is something that I'm sure was being made by the ladies in the house, are small terracotta cakes. वो भी मिट्टी की बनी हुई है, और कुछ तिकोनी है, कुछ पेड़ा की तरह है, कुछ गोल है, कुछ दबा हुआ है. And we don't know what they were used for, except that they're always found near the chula. तो हांडी जब खाना पकाया, इसके अंदर अगर किस तरह रखना है और उसको गर्म रखना है, तो इसके नीचे ये गर्म डेला को रखना है, ये जैसे ना गोल, फिर ये गर्म रहता है या दम देते हैं इसके. So these are always found near the kitchen. So we want to study these to understand how they're used and how they link to the Harappan cooking traditions. And we find also the big black slip jars. I don't think the black slip jars were made in Aladdin. This clay probably comes from Mohenjo-daro. And these vessels were used for trading materials. But we will see. We're going to analyze the clay. And kabhi-kabhi iske upar tahreer bhi hoti hai. So we're looking very carefully for the writing, because these jars were used for trade. So somebody wrote on top of them, इसमें आम की अचार है और ये फलां जगह पे जाएगा, तो ये सारा लिखा ना इसके ऊपर, बंडल करके ना वो बैलगाड़ी में भेज दिया, किश्ती में बैठा दिया, फिर आगे पहुंच गया. So this is या तो घी है या तो कोई खास चीज़. So this is used for trade. So finding them in Harappa, in Aladino, is very important. And we've been doing a big study of this to try to understand their production and distribution. और कुछ pottery के ऊपर तहरीर का असर भी है. So this, वो जो फोटो में नज़र नहीं आता है, तो मैंने एक ड्राइंग बनाया इसके ऊपर. So this is one sign of the Indus script. वो कुछ लंबी तहरीर की है, मगर उसका एक हिस्सा मिल गया. So we're trying to find and recover new examples of writing at Aladino that will help us understand the writing system of this valley. So in conclusion, we can say the pottery of Aladino shows local material and also material from many different places. If you go to the areas where they sell pottery in Karachi, you will get pottery from Punjab, from Multan, from Peshawar, from alag-alag jagah se mil jata hai. We found at the excavations by Fair Service, ये जो painted pottery मिला है, ये जोब की. This comes from Lorelai जोब के area. देखिए बहुत दूर से आया, तो ये इस जैसे pottery Aladino में मिला. So further analysis will help allow us to better understand the local technologies and the long-distance trade network during different periods and show how Al Ladino is connected to other parts of Pakistan and abroad. Thank you very much.
His presentations are always very, very fascinating, and I love his presentations. And as he said, we are still working at Aladino, and I'm sure that we are going to get very exciting results in a year or two. Archaeology का काम बड़ा सब्र का काम होता है और आस्ता आस्ता चलता है, एकदम से हम किसी conclusion पे नहीं पहुँचते हैं. तो next comes Dr. Noman Beg. He's from Habib University. He is an associate professor of comparative humanities at Habib University. He has a PhD in anthropology from the University of Texas at Austin. And topic of his talk is Merchants of Sin, Commerce and Cosmology in Karachi's Bazaar. This is another very, very interesting topic, and I personally know his work, so I'm sure आप लोगों को भी बहुत अच्छा लगेगा. So I would like to request Dr. Noman Beg to please come.
डॉक्टर आसमा और डॉक्टर करीमुल्लाह शारी साहब का जिन्होंने मुझे इनवाइट किया है यहाँ पे. मेरा काम बिल्कुल कंटेम्प्रेरी फिल्म पर है. तो आप लोग अभी जो 2000 साल पुरानी तारीख सुनी है, अब आप जो है आज मौजूदा हालात में आ जाएं ताकि थोड़ा सा कुछ मैं इस पर डिस्कस करता हूँ. जैसे मार्क नोयर साहब ने फरमाया था कि आर्कियोलॉजिस्ट जो होते हैं वो पॉटरी के जो पीसेस होते हैं उसको जोड़ के एक तारीख रकम करते हैं, नई तारीख बनाते हैं, और उससे हमें जो एक नई हिस्टोरिकल कॉन्शियसनेस भी मिलती है. मेरी ट्रेनिंग जो है एज एन एंथ्रोपोलॉजिस्ट है, तो हम लोग जो है वो लोगों की आदतें, उनकी बातें, उनके किस्से, उनकी कहानियों को जोड़ के फिर हम एक कहानी बनाते हैं. तो हमारा काम जो है वो लोगों के साथ बिल्कुल जुड़ा हुआ होता है. और मेरी जो रिसर्च है वो कराची के मशहूर बाज़ार जो बोल्टन मार्केट और जूड़िया बाज़ार है, यहाँ पे मैंने की थी कुछ साल पहले, और वो ऑनगोइंग चलती रहती है. मैंने काफ़ी वक्त जो है यहाँ के जो करेंसी ट्रेडर्स हैं, जो हवाले वाले हैं, जो मुख्तलिफ व्यापारीज हैं, सौदागर्स हैं, उनके साथ मैंने कुछ वक्त गुजारा और जो कुछ सीखा उनके साथ वो मैं आज थोड़ा सा पेश करता हूँ. और ये मेरी किताब का हिस्सा भी है जिसको मैंने अभी एक टाइटल दिया है कॉस्मोनॉमिक्स, और मैं उस पर बताता हूँ वो क्या चीज़ है. वो कुछ साल पहले की बात है कि मैं यहाँ बोल्टन मार्केट में एक वेयर हाउस, कॉस्मेटिक का वेयर हाउस था, वहाँ पे मैं बैठा था. तो वहाँ पे एक ताजिर जो है सक्कर से आता है और वो अपनी ख़रीदारी करता है, और फिर जब उसको रकम देने लगता है तो कहता है कि ये रकम जो है कल में मुझसे गुम हो गई थी. कल ये रकम 2 लाख के करीब कुछ थी रकम जो उससे गुम हो गई थी. वो क्या था किस्सा, ये हज़रत जो हैं ये एक दिन पहले इलेक्ट्रॉनिक मार्केट गए थे. वहाँ उन्होंने अपनी नोटबुक के अंदर 2 लाख रुपए रखे थे और वो वहीं भूल कर आ गए. और जब अपने रूम में आए होटल के, तो वहाँ उन्होंने देखा कि इनकी किताब जो है वो मिसिंग है और 2 लाख रुपए भी चले गए. तो उन्होंने वहाँ पे इन्ना लाए व इन्ना लहे राजीऊन पढ़ दिया कि अब ये रकम जो है गई, अब नहीं मिलेगी. तो वहाँ जो दूसरे हजरात थे उन्होंने पूछा अब तो नींद आ गई थी. उन्होंने कहा दुआ पढ़ के कुछ थोड़ी सी तसल्ली हुई. लेकिन जो दूसरी सुबह जैसे ही उठे वापस इलेक्ट्रॉनिक मार्केट गए, वहाँ जाके उसी दुकानदार से पूछा कि भाई मैंने किताब भूल गया था, यहाँ पे है. वो उनको मिल गई. उन्होंने जैसे ही खोल के देखा उसमें 2 लाख रुपए उनके रखे हुए. तो उन्होंने उस 2 लाख रुपए में से कुछ रकम जो है वो अल्लाह नाम के खैरात कर दी. तो इस तरह का जो वाक़या जब उन्होंने सुनाया तो वहाँ जो बैठे हुए जो लोग सुन रहे थे वो सब बहुत हैरान हुए कि कराची में वापस कोई चीज़ मिल जाना एक मौमा ही है. तो मैंने इस तरह के वाक़यात और इसी तरह की चीज़ें जब मार्केट में बेतहाशा सुनी कि मिसाल के तौर पे कि दुकानों में अगर आप जाते हैं बाज़ार में तो वहाँ पे नक्श नूरानी लगे हुए होते हैं, लोहे महफूज के हुर्फ़े मुक़त्तआत लगे होते हैं, पुरानी कैलीग्राफी लगी हुई होती है. सुबह उठते हैं तो अपनी दुकानों के अंदर धूनी देते हैं. अक्सर दुकानदार ऐसे हैं जो किराए पे किसी को लेकर आते हैं, वो कुरान की तिलावत करके उनकी शुरुआत होती है. इस तरह की चीज़ें वो बहुत आम है इन मार्केट्स के अंदर, बोल्टन मार्केट और जूड़िया बाज़ार. फिर मैं ये जोड़िया बाज़ार का जो इलाका है, अगर आप लोग वाकिफ़ हों, थोड़ा सा और आगे जाएं, फिर आगे टिम्बर मार्केट आती है। टिम्बर मार्केट में ये सारा लकड़ी का कारोबार करते हैं व्यापारी, और यहाँ पे दुकान के बाहर 52 का जो फिगर है वो लिखा हुआ था, 52, हर दुकान के बाहर 52 लिखा हुआ था। तो पहले तो मुझे लगा शायद ये कोई दुकान का नंबर है, फिर वहाँ जो बैठे हुए शख्स हैं उन्होंने बताया ये दुकान का नंबर नहीं है, ये सैयदना जो बोरी हैं उनके रूहानी पेशवा, ये शिजरे के अंदर ये 52वां नंबर उनका है, इस ये मुक़द्दस नंबर समझा जाता है हमारे दीन में, हमारे उसमें। तो हमने दुकानों पे लिखा है नंबर। एक चीज़ ये हुई, पहले वाक़या था कि वो रकम खो गई थी, उन्होंने दुआ पढ़ी, फिर दुकानों के अंदर वो इस तरह की जो रसूमात है वो कर रहे हैं, फिर दुकानों पे 52 का नंबर लिखना। थोड़ा सा आगे और वॉक करते हुए जाएं, ये करेंसी की जो मार्केट है मेन एमेजिना रोड पे, यहाँ पे मैं वॉक कर रहा था, एक तो मैंने देखा कि फुटपाथ के ऊपर कुछ लोग जो हैं वो नक्श बेच रहे हैं, मुख्तलिफ कागज़ के ऊपर नक्श बने हैं, और उसके ऊपर लिखा हुआ था बंगाल का टाइगर, कलंदर बाबा, भारत की देवी। तो मैं हैरान हुआ, मैंने कहा कि क्या इस पे नंबर लिखे हुए हैं और इस तरह के। तो एक शख्स ने मुझे बराबर में आके बोला कि तुम ये नंबर जो है ना ये खेलो। मैं परेशान हुआ कि मतलब क्या खेलना क्या है। तो उसने कहा कि ये नंबर जो है लकी नंबर है, और ये किसी बाबा से पड़ा हुआ है, आप जाके पीछे कोई सट्टा चलता है वहाँ जाके ये खेलें, इससे आपको जो है ना बहुत मुनाफा हो। फिर और आगे कहानी जो है वो इस तरह से एंथ्रोपोलॉजी से काम होता है, वो एक स्नो बॉल इफेक्ट जो होता है, वो हम चलते हुए कहानियाँ किससे जमा करते हैं। तो ये एक तरह से बहुत आम सी चीज़ें हैं जो मार्केट्स में होती हैं, और इकनॉमिस्ट जो होते हैं वो इन चीज़ों को रद्द कर देते हैं। वो कहते हैं ये सब बेकार, ये खराफात हैं, इनसे कुछ नहीं होता, ये सब बेकार की बातें हैं, ये अनपढ़ जाहिल लोग जो हैं ज़्यादातर इस्तेमाल करते हैं। इत्तेफाक हुआ एक दफ़ा ये हबीब फैमिली जो इनके जो सरबराह हैं उनसे बात करने का, तो उन्होंने मुझे अपने ऑफिस में बुलाया, और फिर हमने जब इंटरव्यू मैंने शुरू किया तो उन्होंने कहा कि मैं हर सुबह उठ के जो है वो सहीफ़ा सज्जादिया इमाम ज़ैनुल आबिदीन की जो दुआएं हैं मैं उठ के वो पढ़ता हूँ। उससे मुझे उसके पढ़े बगैर मैं अपना दिन कारोबारी दिन शुरू नहीं करता। अच्छा, उसके पीछे अगर आपने कभी देखा हो हबीब मेट्रो का जो साइन है हबीब बैंक का, उसका जो मोनोग्राम है उसमें एक शेर बना हुआ है। शेर कभी गौर से देखिएगा, उस शेर की जो शक्ल है वो इंसानी शक्ल है। तो वो जो है वो शेर सिंबलाइज करता है मौला अली शेर खुदा, उससे सिंबलाइज होता है। और उसके नीचे जो है वो 5 सितारे बने हुए हैं जो पंजतन पाक अहले बैत से मुंसलिक हैं, और एक नीचे तलवार है अल-जुल्फ़िकार जो हज़रत अली की तलवार से। तो फाइनेंस और फेथ वो एक दूसरे के साथ बिल्कुल गठजोड़ है उनका, बिल्कुल जुथे हुए हैं, उनको अलग नहीं किया जा सकता। तो मैं ये एक आर्ग्यूमेंट करता हूँ अपनी बुक में कि अगर आपको ये बाज़ार लोगों की जो माशी सोच है इसको पढ़ना है तो आपको उनकी जो रसूमात हैं, उनकी जो दीनी सोच है उसको भी साथ पढ़ना होगा। और इसका जो फ्यूजन है उसको मैं कॉस्मोनॉमिक्स का नाम देता हूँ कि कॉमर्स और कॉस्मोलॉजी को मिल के ये एक नई सोच, एक नई फिक्र, एक नई तहजीब जो है इन बाज़ारों में चलती है, जो ना कि एक सरमायादाराना निज़ाम में फिट बैठती है वो। क्योंकि सरमायादाराना जो निज़ाम है उसमें क्या होता है, सबसे बुनियादी मकसद जो ताजिर का, जो सौदागर का, जो बैंकर का होता है वो होता है सेल्फ मैक्सिमाइजेशन, अपने आप की गर्ज को तक़वियत देना, ज़्यादा से ज़्यादा करना। लेकिन यहाँ पे वो उस तरह से नहीं हो रहा। यहाँ पे आप अक्सर दुकानों पे जाएं मुख्तलिफ़ चीज़ों पे, जैसे और भी मैंने कुछ लंगर के ऊपर भी इसी तरह की मैंने बात की थी इस पर कि अगर आप साबिर निहारी जो जामा क्लॉथ पर है वहाँ पे जाएं तो वहाँ पे वो जो उनके रजिस्टर जो गले पे बैठते हैं हजरत, वो एक तरफ तो उनका बिज़नेस चल रहा होता है और दूसरी तरफ एक कॉलम उन्होंने बनाया होता है कि अगर किसी को खैरात करनी है वो यहाँ पे उनको दे दें, और उस तरह से वो लोगों को दिन भर जो है खाना खिलाते थे, 40 रुपये की एक प्लेट या 50 रुपये। تو بزنس بھی چل رہا ہے ساتھ ساتھ، اور ساتھ ساتھ ایک چیریٹی اور خیرات کا نظام بھی چل رہا ہے، دونوں ایک ساتھ اس میں چل رہے ہیں۔ اچھا مغرب میں کیا ہوتا ہے، ویسٹ میں یہ اب جو ہے وہ جدا ہو گیا ہے بہت حد تک، ایک طرح سے اس میں ایک گیپ آ گیا ہے کہ ریلیجن از اے ڈفرنٹ تھنگ، اٹس اے پرائیویٹ افیئر، وہ آپ کا ایک ذاتی عمل ہے، وہ اپنے چرچ میں یا مسجد میں رکھیں، اور اکنامکس جو ہے وہ مارکیٹ وہ سیکولر پرنسپلس کے تحت چلے، حالانکہ وہاں پہ بھی ایسا نہیں ہوتا۔ اگر آپ ان کا ڈالر کا وہ دیکھیں نوٹ، اس میں بھی لکھا ہوا ہوتا ہے ان گاڈ وی ٹرسٹ، تو اس کا مطلب ہے کہ وہاں پہ بھی ایک خدا کی چھاپ جو ہے اس پہ بھی نظر آتی ہے ان کے نوٹ۔ تو یہ جو پوری ایک اچھا پھر بات چیت جو کرتے ہیں، اکثر آپ نے دیکھا ہوگا کہ دکاندار جو ہے وہ، جیسے میرا واسطہ پڑا ایک عباسی کتب خانہ ہے جوڑیہ بازار میں، کافی پرانا، تقریباً 100 سال ہو گئے اس کتب خانے کو، ابھی بھی ہے وہ، اور وہاں پہ ایک دن بیٹھے ہوئے تھے، بات چیت ہوتی ہے، تو کچھ نیگوشیشن ہو رہی ہے کتاب کے اوپر۔ نیگوشیشن کیا ہے، 10-15 روپے کی یا 20-25 روپے کی، اتنی ہے، اس سے زیادہ کی گنجائش ہوتی نہیں۔ تو جب وہ کہتے ہیں کہ بھائی مجھے بھی قبر میں جانا ہے، اس سے زیادہ منافع میں نہیں بناؤں گا، قبر میں جانا یا مجھے بھی اللہ کو حاضر ہونا ہے یا جواب دینا ہے، تو یہ جو اسٹیٹمنٹس اس طرح سے لوگ کہتے ہیں ٹرانزیکشنز کے دوران، تو میں نے اس میں آرگیو کرتا ہوں کہ یہ صرف اسٹیٹمنٹس نہیں ہیں، یہ اس کے اندر کچھ اخلاقی قدریں بھی چھپی ہوئی ہوتی ہیں جس کو ہم رد نہیں کر سکتے۔ بہت ساری جگہوں پہ آپ نے دیکھا ہوگا کہ آپ دکاندار جو ہے وہ آپ سے بےایمانی بھی کرتے ہیں اور الٹی سیدھی چیز بھی بیچ دیتے ہیں، نقصان بھی ہوتا ہے، لیکن یہ ایک تاثر ہمارے ہاں ہے اور ہوتا بھی ہے، لیکن جو میری ریسرچ جو بتاتی ہے کہ کچھ اخلاقی قدریں ابھی بھی ہیں، باقی ابھی بھی ہیں، اور اخلاقیات اور مالیات کا جو تعلق ہے وہ ہمیں بہت بغور اس کو دیکھنا پڑے گا، اس کو رد نہیں کر سکتے۔ اور اسلام کے اندر ایک خاص قسم کی کمرشل آپ اس کو کہہ رہے ہیں کہ اہمیت ہے۔ حضور صلی اللہ علیہ وسلم کا تعلق کو جو تاجر بھی تھے، کپڑے کی تجارت کرتے تھے، کافی سارے جو یہاں پہ گجراتی میمن مرچنٹس ہیں ان کا تعلق کپڑے کے بیوپار سے ہے، اور وہ اس کاروبار کو ایک طرح سے مقدس بھی سمجھتے ہیں، کیونکہ کاروبار کے اندر منافع بھی ہے اور وہ ایک مذہبی فریضہ بھی انجام دے رہے ہیں، مطلب وہ الگ نہیں ہے۔ تو اس فیوژن کو میں نے نام دیا ہے کاسمونامکس۔ کاسمونامکس جو ہے وہ کامرس اور اکنامکس سے مل کے یہ نئی فگر بنتی ہے۔ اچھا، اس کا تعلق اسلامک فائنینس یا اسلامک اکنامکس سے نہیں ہے، جو ضیاء کے ٹائم پہ امپوز کیا گیا تھا جبری طور پہ۔ ضیاء الحق نے کیا کیا تھا، اس نے زکوٰۃ کو کمپلسری قرار دے دیا تھا کہ اب آپ جس کے بھی بینک اکاؤنٹ ہوگا اس کو زکوٰۃ دینی پڑے گی۔ تو میری آرگومنٹ یہ ہے کہ یہ وہ اسٹیٹ کی امپوز اکنامکس نہیں ہے، یہ ایک گراؤنڈڈ اکنامکس ہے جو بہت ہی انڈیجنس ہے، امبیڈڈ ہے یہاں کے رسم و رواج سے۔ مین چیز جو میں نے اس میں جو دیکھی کہ تصوف، صوفیزم، اس کو علم عرفان بھی کہتے ہیں، وہ کتنا پرمیٹ کرتا ہے ان بازاروں کے اندر۔ اکثر خیراتی ادارے جو ہیں، جس سے سیلانی ہو گیا، سیلانی والے جو خود تھے مولانا بشیر جو مولانا ہیں اب تو خیر، وہ ان کی بھی ایک دکان بولٹن مارکیٹ میں ہوتی تھی ایمرجنسی لائٹس کی، وہ آہستہ آہستہ جو ہے وہ مرچنٹ سے جو ہے وہ مولانا ہو گئے۔ اس طرح کی بے تحاشا مثالیں ہیں کہ کس طرح سے یہ ٹرانسفارمیشن ہوتی ہے۔ تو میں یہ ٹرانسفارمیشن دیکھ رہا ہوں کہ مرچنٹ کا ٹرانسفارم ہونا مولانا کے اندر۔ لیکن یہ تصوف کی جو میں بات کرنا چاہتا ہوں، یہ ایک سوچ ہے، ایک فکر ہے جو مارکیٹ کی جو فیبرک میں نا وہ ووون ہوئی ہے، اس کے اندر ایمبیڈڈ ہے، پرمیٹ ہے۔ کچھ تاجر جو ہیں وہ اس کو بہت سیریسلی لیتے ہیں صوفیزم کو، وہ کچھ حلقوں سے جڑے ہوئے ہیں، کچھ صوفی طریقوں سے جڑے ہوئے ہیں، اور وہ مثال کے طور پہ ایک میرا جو انٹرلوکیوٹر جس کو کہیں گے، جس کے ساتھ بیٹھ کے میں نے کافی وقت گزارا، وہ جو ہے وہ اپنا کرنسی کا کام بھی کرتا ہے، حوالے کا کام بھی ہو رہا ہے، دنیا میں ٹرانزیکشنز ہو رہی ہیں، اور دوسری طرف وہ ایک صوفی طریقت سے بھی جڑے ہوئے ہیں. ہر جمعرات کو ہلکا لگتا ہے, اس میں ذکر ہوتی ہے, اس میں ذکر کی محفل ہوتی ہے. تو میرا ایک تجسس یہ تھا کہ یہ ایک طرف حوالے کا کام بھی ہے. اچھا, حوالے کے کام میں یہ جو سوال ہے لیگیلٹی اور انلیگیلٹی, کیا یہ قانوناً صحیح ہے, جائز ہے, یہ بے معنی سی چیز ہے, کیونکہ حوالے کا کام صدیوں سے چلتا چلا رہا ہے. مغل دور سے یہ کام ہو رہا ہے. یہ 9/11 کے بعد آ کے حکومت نے اس کے اوپر ایک امپوز کیا کہ بھائی اب آپ یہ نہ کریں. ایک بڑی مشہور کتاب فرینچ ہسٹورین نے لکھی تھی, کلاڈ مارکووٹس, شکارپوری مرچنٹس. تو اس کے اگر آپ پڑھیں تو اس کے اندر بڑی ڈیٹیل کے اندر انہوں نے یہ دکھایا ہے کہ حوالے کا کام شکارپور سے وہ جو کاشگر ہے چائنا میں, جو ماسکو ہے, الیگزینڈریا ایجپٹ میں, پناما تک, وہاں تک پھیلا ہوا تھا شکارپوری مرچنٹس کا, کیونکہ ان کا جو کنشپ نیٹ ورک ہے وہ پورا پھیلتا ہے. ایک بھائی جو ہے شکارپور میں ہے, دوسرا بھائی کاشگر میں ہے, تیسرا بھائی الیگزینڈریا میں بیٹھا ہے ایجپٹ میں, اور اس طرح سے وہ منی کی ٹرانزیکشن ہوتی ہے. تو میرا کام حوالے والوں کے ساتھ تھا, اور میں یہ دیکھنا چاہ رہا تھا کہ ان کی کیا دینی یا کیا ایک فکر ہے جس کے تحت یہ کاروبار چلتا ہے. تو وہ ٹینشن جو ہے مذہبی سوچ میں اور مالیاتی سوچ میں, وہ ٹینشن رہتی ہے, کبھی آپس میں جڑتی نہیں. اور جو جس طرح سے یہ جوڑتے ہیں وہ خیرات و زکوٰۃ سے جوڑتے ہیں. بے تحاشا زکوٰۃ خیرات ہوتی ہے, اور ٹیکس نہیں دینا لیکن لوگوں میں تقسیم کرنا ہے, لنگر تقسیم کرنا ہے, عام طور پہ تقسیم کرنا ہے. تو یہ ایک سوال پیدا ہوتا ہے کہ بھائی ٹیکس دینے میں کیوں اتنی حجت ہے, باقی چیزوں میں نہیں ہے. تو بہرحال وہ ایک بڑا انٹرسٹنگ سا کا پیراڈائم ہے جو آگے چل کے میں نے اس کو اور ایکسپلور کیا ہے. اس طرح کی کچھ یادداشتیں ہیں جو میں نے مارکیٹ میں دیکھی ہیں. اچھا, مارکیٹ جوڑیا بازار, بوٹم مارکیٹ, یہ بہت قدیم مارکیٹیں ہیں. یہ پارٹیشن سے پہلے کی ہیں. اس کے اندر ہندو تاجر تھے. کراچی کا نقشہ آپ سب کو معلوم ہوگا کہ پارٹیشن کے بعد وہ بالکل تبدیل ہو جاتا ہے. وہ پہلے یہ ہندو میجورٹی سٹی تھا, پھر وہ اس میں جو مائنورٹی بن جاتے ہیں. کافی سارے تاجر جو ہے وہ ہجرت کر جاتے ہیں بامبے, گجرات اور دوسری جگہوں کے اوپر. تو اب جو پریڈومنیٹلی مسلم گروپ ہے جو وہ ڈومینیٹ کرتا ہے, اس میں اسماعیلی ہیں, کھوجا ہیں, بوریز ہیں, میمنز ہیں, اور پنجابی دہلی سوداگران. یہ مین ایتھنک گروپس ہیں جو اس مارکیٹ کو آپریٹ کرتے ہیں, چلاتے ہیں. اور زیادہ تر ان کا جو نیٹ ورک ہے وہ ان کے کنشپ بھائی بندوں پہ چلتا ہے. فیملی فارمز جس کو کہتے ہیں, ابھی تک اسی طریقے سے چلا رہے ہیں. کچھ ماڈرنائزیشن ہو رہی ہے, اور جو ماڈرنائزیشن ہوتی ہے تو اس کے اندر پھر آپ دیکھتے ہیں کہ نئے نئے شاپنگ مالز بھی بن رہے ہیں. تو ہمارا سٹی جو ہے وہ بہت ٹرانسفارم ہو رہا ہے اس طرح سے. اس کی کچھ کنٹینیوٹی بھی آپ دیکھیں گے ماضی سے آتی ہے, اور اب جو ہے وہ اتنا تبدیل ہو رہا ہے کہ ایک نئی اکانومی جنم لے رہی ہے ای کامرس کے ذریعے سے, اور نئی ٹیکنالوجیز آ رہی ہیں. پیسے کی جو ترسیل ہے وہ مختلف طریقوں سے ہوتی ہے. یہاں پہ میں اب یہ روک دیتا ہوں, سوال جواب ہوں گے تو اس میں پھر آپ کے پاس کوئی سوال ہو تو آپ پوچھ سکتے ہیں. بہت شکریہ.
Thank you so much, Dr. Numan. Numan Beg صاحب ہم کو فرام ہڑپن ٹو پریزنٹ ٹائمس لے آئے تھے کالونیل ٹائم پیریڈ میں, اور ٹریڈ اور اکنامکس پہ بات کر رہے تھے. اب ہم واپس ہڑپن ٹائمس کی ٹریڈ اور اکنامکس پر جائیں گے ود ڈاکٹر رینڈل لا. ہی از اے PhD in anthropology from University of Wisconsin Madison. He investigates the procurement and exchange of rock and mineral resources by Indus civilization peoples and contemporaneous societies in Northwest and South Asia. He has conducted extensive survey expeditions across Pakistan, India and Oman in order to locate and sample potential raw material sources. These samples collected have been used to conduct geological provenance analysis of a wide range of stone and metal artifacts from very major Indus urban center as well as from dozens of smaller sites. ڈاکٹر لا کا زیادہ انٹرسٹ جو ہے آرٹیفیکٹس کی کریکٹرائزیشن اینڈ ایکسپیریمنٹل ریپلیکیشن آف اینشینٹ ٹیکنالوجیز ہے, اور یہ سورس مٹیریل پر کام کرتے ہیں. کس طرح ہڑپا کی سائٹ پر ڈفرینٹ سیمی پریشیس بیڈز اور میٹلز اور اسٹونز ट्रांसफ़र हुए थे और क्या वेज थे और उस वक्त लोग किस तरह से सफ़र कर रहे थे, ये सारी टेक्नोलॉजी के बारे में डॉक्टर हैंडल लॉ विल टॉक अबाउट इट एंड आई वुड लाइक टू रिक्वेस्ट यू टू प्लीज कम एंड प्रेजेंट दिस स्टेटमेंट.
Assalamu alaikum. It's wonderful to be here in Karachi. Before coming back on this trip, I had not visited Karachi in about 20 years. And as Professor Coyer says, it's a wonderful city and it's always been very good to me. Good afternoon. Today I'm going to be speaking on identifying Indus civilization stone and metal trade networks. As Professor Knoyer alluded to or showed in his talk, the Indus civilization was an extensive society, and that across that extent it was connected by just long and very intense trade and communication networks. Now, you can study those trade networks like Professor Knoyer did by looking at ceramics, or you can look at things like shell, which, by the way, he did for his dissertation back about 40 years ago. Or you can even look at fauna, the animals that moved across the landscape and that were traded, which several of his students looked at. About 25 years ago, when I began this project, I decided to look at stone and metal, the huge range of artifacts that stone and metal artifacts that were found at Indus civilization sites. I first came here about 25, first I should say, why stone and metal? Well, first of all, they're at archaeological sites, they're among the best preserved and most unchangeable artifacts. They're highly variable, as I showed you in the previous slide, many different kinds of things. And stone and metal artifacts are essential to the development and functioning of early civilizations. You need them for social reasons and as markers of your culture and wealth and various other things. And you also need them for the certain types of stone and metal for day-to-day tasks, like cutting and grinding of grain. You must have this for the society to function on a day-to-day basis. So there are many different kinds of stone and metal that you can look at. Now, I began my research at Harappa as a student of Professor Knoyer's. Here we are about almost 25 years ago, quarter century younger and a lot thinner. I was there at Harappa as a participant in the Harappa Archaeological Research Project, which was directed by Martin Knoyer together with Dr. Richard Meadow of Harvard University. And the great thing about Harappa is you get up and in the early morning, especially after rain, it's great. You can walk across the mounds at the site and do surface survey. You just bend down and look, and pretty soon you'll pick up a handful of artifacts, stone and metal artifacts, among other things. A wide range of stuff here. There's shell, chert, Vesuvianite, copper, all kinds of stuff. It's an incredibly rich site. You don't have to dig down to find very much. It's right on the surface. But when you do dig down, you find it. These stone and metal continue from the top of the site down to the earliest level in abundance. And we know where it comes from. Harappa has an extremely well understood and well dated chronological sequence, stratigraphic sequence. And stone and metal are found throughout them. I this, as the Aladino project members know, that we do tabulation at the end of the day. We tabulate everything. I didn't arrive at Harappa until the year 2000. It had been going on since 1986. So there's already a great deal of material there for me to study. Have been collected and tabulated and saved. And when I got there were already about over 56,000 tabulated artifacts, or stone and metal artifacts. And the majority of those were steatite beads and manufacturing debris, chert, followed by agate and jasper and various other things. But a huge range of artifacts. a huge range of stone and metal artifacts representing 40 different kinds of material. Now, when you walk across the site, you find a lot of stone. But when you walk off the site into the fields surrounding it, if you do the same survey and you look in the fields and on the ground, you find nothing. There's not a pebble. There's not a flake. There's nothing. And you go beyond that, and there's still nothing. Harappa lies in the center of the upper Indus Basin, known as the Punjab. And if you move away to rivers, you can see it's a great distance away from the nearest sources of stone. If you're at Harappa and you want a stone, any stone, the minimum distance you have to walk is 120 kilometers. Most stuff, anything, everything is much further. So, my task for my project was to, was to connect Harappa to the stone and metal resources surrounding the upper Indus Basin and beyond. Now, to do that, there are really 4 steps for successfully locating the sources of stone and metal artifacts. You have to locate the natural occurrences. You have to collect a representative range of geologic samples, and you're going to use those to compare to your stone and metal artifacts. You have to demonstrate that the isotopic or chemical and mineralogical variability is different between those sources. And you have to establish a set of criteria to assign your excavated artifacts to the geologic sources from which you've collected samples. Now, locating potential sources was actually not that difficult. There's been a great deal of geologic research done by many learned geologists here in Pakistan, so I had to study many geologic topo sheets. But the geology of Northwest and South Asia is well understood. It's incredibly diverse, which is a good thing to distinguish artifacts from different regions. Now, the second thing you need to do is collect a representative range of geologic samples from different sources. For example, if I'm studying steatite, I want to get steatite from sources in every major region surrounding the Indus Basin, from which ancient Harappans potentially had access to. And this was really the fun part, the collecting of the geologic samples. And so to do this, I had to travel, and travel I did. I had to start in Sindh, and I went up through Balochistan, across the tribal areas into KPK, across the Salt Range of Punjab, and into Jammu and Kashmir. I eventually started doing surveys in India, in Himalaya, in Rajasthan, in Gujarat. And my travels eventually even took me across the Arabian Sea into Oman. And after all this, which took multiple trips, many years, I was basically obtained geologic samples from every major region surrounding the greater Indus Valley Basin, basically the area of the Indus civilization. So, I was not alone when I did this. I met many people, many fine people, and some of them actually helped me personally collect the stones I was looking for. And I had the help of some wonderful geologists. I'm an archaeologist, I'm not a geologist, but I work closely with many members of the geological sciences here in Pakistan. The late Dr. Saeed Hamidullah from the Center of Excellence in Geology, University of Peshawar, and retired Dr. Saeed Bakri at the Pakistan Museum of Natural History. We did a great survey of the Salt Range, and it was he who belonged to Kaipur, actually brought me to Sindh for the first time. And I learned a lot, obviously, from Professor Kanoya. One of the things he told me is that you always must look in the cases of these stone sellers. These guys have everything in their boxes, and just go there, ask them, question them, where is this material coming from? And so I did. I went around to a lot of these, and I'll give you an example. One of them was right here in Karachi. This was in front of this was in December of 2000. This is in front of the shrine of Shargazi. And I'm with the gentleman there on I guess it would be your right-hand side, is Suleiman Ahmed. He was a student of Dr. Javed Hussain at the University of Karachi. He was with me, and we were going around and visiting different sources and people. Anyway, we're questioning this stone seller. He's holding a big piece of steatite, exactly what I'm looking for. And I asked him, where can I find this? Well, he told me that every year he goes to the Mela at Shah Nurani. Where's Shah Nurani? He said, well, you can catch a bus from Lee Market and be there in about 5 hours. It's actually in southern wonderfully carved rosaries and prayer beads and all kinds of amulets made of just beautiful, fine, compact steatite, exactly what I was looking for. So I questioned them. Where does this come from? They told me it's about a 3 or 4 days walk, depending on how you go. As the crow flies, it was about 40 kilometers further to the west. So, with that information, I was able to locate the Wayaro steatite deposits in the southern Balochistan province and obtain wonderful samples for my eventual analysis. As it turns out, and I'm jumping ahead, but as it turns out, this is great steatite for carving, but I'll explain later why this is not Harappan steatite. Now, I also visited a wide range of people. I also visited the Pansaris, these traditional medics, and actually they had a great deal of many types of stone among their traditional medicines, which I collected samples from, and actually asked them the same kind of questions. Where did this stuff come from? So, I literally obtained truckloads of samples. This was in my first tour of the Rory Hills of Sindh, and I would take this truckload of samples back to Harappa and take off some smaller samples for eventual analysis. So, the next step was demonstrating the chemical and isotopic variability between the different sources. And this was achieved. This is not going to be a too technical a talk, but I did different things depending on the material. Some of it was just basic mineralogical testing, X-ray diffraction analysis, SEM. I did more detailed studies like instrumental neutron activation analysis, which Professor Knoyer has done on his pottery as well. Also multi-collector mass spectrometry. And I simply did large-scale systematic comparative studies. Now, I looked at all stone in Harappa, but I did the biggest work on grinding stones, chert, steatite, carnelian, vesuvianite, and other materials, some of which I'll discuss the results. All of this work, all of this traveling was quite costly. I had, again, a great deal of institutional support, and my very first, besides the Harappa Archaeological Research Project, my very first support here in Pakistan was through the American Institute of Pakistan Studies. Now, the last thing you need to do once you have your samples, once you've done the analysis, you have to establish a set of analytical parameters to compare them to the artifacts. This was achieved through various means, statistical and otherwise. Okay, and what I learned after all that, after all the collection, all the analysis, that when the various potential sources of all these different types of stone are plotted on the landscape, I was able to trace the trade networks back to Harappa. Now this particular map is incredibly complex. It's kind of conflated from many different periods. But remember, I told you about the chronological sequence of Harappa prior to this. Because we have that, and because we have well-dated stone and metal artifacts throughout that sequence, we can look at the transformation of Indus stone and metal trade networks through time. Starting from the earliest phase, When Harappa was a smaller village amongst a smaller, society, to its expansion during the early Harappan Kotiji period, and then through the Harappa phase, the urban phase, where trainings grow, change, and then through the late Harappan phase where things contract somewhat. Throughout all of that, the major findings were that the large majority of stone and metal resources utilized by residents of Harappa, people at that site, were attributable to sources within the greater Indus region. In other words, there was very little material that I could trace to a source outside of either Pakistan or northwestern India. We weren't getting material from Egypt or Mesopotamia, or I couldn't trace much to Central Asia other than lapis lazuli. Now, resources from every major sub-region were included. So at Harappa, they were getting stuff from KPK, Balochistan, Rajasthan, Gujarat, Sindh, all major sub-regions. But during all periods of Harappa, the majority of stone and metal resources that were used at the site were derived from sources that were located to the north, in northern Pakistan, the large majority. Now, those findings and all that research that I just summarized for you now all were published in, well, first my dissertation, then in my 2011 book, which is available on harappa.com. Free to all, just you can go there and download the PDF of this book and many other research papers that I've produced. Now, as I said, that was in 2011. Since my work at Harappa, I've analyzed artifacts from all the other major Indus sites, as well as a few dozen smaller sites throughout the greater Indus region. Now, I said at Harappa, everything was focused to the north, and that's largely because of its geographical location. It's oriented towards north. But will the same necessarily be true if you looked at Mohenjo-Daro, other sites, such as the ones here in Sindh? And the remainder of the talk, I want to kind of focus on that. Now, the lower Indus Basin, which is essentially Sindh, is quite different geographically than or is much less expansive than the upper Indus Basin, the Punjab. Of course, I've studied thus far material from 6 Harappan period sites in this region. Now, of course, you have the Kittar Range to the west and its extensions in Kohistan. Then the hills and ranges of Balochistan. To the north, you have the southern lobe of the Suleiman Range. To the west and south, you have Rajasthan, Gujarat, and the rich deposits of Kutch. And right in the center of all, you have the Gori Hills. So already, although most of these sites, with the exception of Aladina, which I'll talk about in a minute, are on the plains itself and away from stone and metal resources, they're not nearly as remote, removed from those resources as, say, they were at Harappa. Okay? First, I'll look at the research that we recently restarted at Aladino. Now, I joined the Aladino excavations this year for the first time, and it was a privilege to be working with Mark again. And I have to thank for that my friends Dr. Asma Ibrahim and Kalimullah Shari of the Sindh Exploration and Adventure Society for inviting me and seeing that I got the proper permits to come. And these are old friends of mine, and I just can't thank them enough for giving me this opportunity. And it's also given me the opportunity to make some new friends. Friends from various universities that I excavate with, I eat with every day, we learn a lot, and we're just having a lot of fun. And I just wanted to say thank you for making this a great time. Now, at Aladino, I have stones on them. That's all I really want to That's not all I really wanted, but that's one of my main purposes for being there, is to see the stones. Now, one of the first things that intrigued me that came up in one of the higher levels of one of the trenches we put in were these two, a grinding stone and a pestle. And both very different kinds of rock. One is, the top one is a conglomerate made up of hardened sandstone with various other inclusions, and the bottom one which appears to be basalt. Where are these coming from? Well, after a few days there, one of the first things I did was to survey the Malire River, which there's cobbles and various other things that are brought from Sinkoistan down through the Malire, and you can get stones right near the site. So we went into the bed of the river and collected all various kinds of materials that were found there. And the grinding stone, which I showed you before, that's purely local. You can find that within probably 10 meters of the site itself, if not closer. The cobble, on the other hand, the basalt cobble, this is not found in the Malire, and this is not found really in Sinkoistan. To find a cobble like this, the nearest place you could go is probably the Las Bela ophiolite, this volcanic sequence, which at the nearest point lies probably about 100, 120 kilometers to the north of Aladino. Or you could go to the south, probably from the Deccan Traps of Gujarat. Or it could even be further afield. We haven't tested this yet, but that hopefully we will be able to do that one day. Now, this is not the first time that I've studied material from Aladino. Back in 2003, the last time I was in Karachi, I got to study this wonderful jewelry hoard, which was excavated at Aladino by Walter Fairservice back in the mid-1970s. At that time, I was primarily interested in the silver ornaments. And silver is actually extracted from lead deposits. And so by sampling lead, this is back in 2003, by sampling lead from these silver ornaments and some from Mohenjo-daro, and I eventually sampled silver ornaments from many, many other sites, I was able to do lead isotope analysis and trace those to, many of them, to a source in southern Baluchistan, near the archaeological site of Sordam. And from there, silver was extracted and sent to Aladino, Mohenjo-daro, and even further afield in Dolavir and Rakhigarh. This was a major Harappan silver source. Not the only one, but the primary one. And as I said, the site of Sordam lies just a few dozen kilometers from these very silver-rich lead deposits. And I think this warrants further investigation. So, back to the Aladino jewelry hoard. At that time, I wasn't studying other materials, but we've since started studying agate. Now, these particular agate, or rather the red variety of agate, which is known as carnelian, these types of agate beads, I can tell you without even studying them, these are almost certainly from Gujarat. First of all, you just don't get that kind of quality and size of agate anywhere else. So I didn't actually get the chance to study these beads, but we've studied others. Now there are many agate sources. I've been involved with Professor Knoyer in a project for about the past 10 years to locate agate sources, not just in South Asia, but in other agate-producing regions like Arabia, Iran, and even further afield. But I'll just focus on these areas now. There are many possibilities, routes through which agate resources can come into the Indus Valley. And any one of these are possible. So, in Sindh, we have sampled and analyzed agate from 4 sites. And what we found was that at the, and this is the results of our laser ablation mass spectrometry analysis. Okay. At the site of Chanodaro, All 50 of the samples we found clearly came from Gujarat. There was no ambiguity about that. And most of the other sites, the majority of those contained, actually those sites contain majority Gujarati agate. However, we did find at 3 of those sites, Mohenjo-daro, Lakanjo-daro, and Lomari, a smaller percentage of agate that appears to come from Iran. So my earlier finding that not much came up from outside the Indus is starting to fall away a little bit, because we're starting to see materials, particularly agate, from Iran. Now, here's an interesting one. These green jade beads from Mohenjo-daro, they were called jade by the earlier excavators about 100 years ago because they're hard, they're very jade-like stones. But we got an opportunity to analyze these closer, particularly the production debris, and found out that they're not jade, that they're actually a material called Vesuvianite rawstone. Had they been jade, the earlier excavators were making arguments like, oh, these must be from China or Burma, because that's where jade is found. But no, they're from Vesuvianite. And Vesuvianite is actually, there are sources in northern Pakistan, in Balochistan, and even in Rajasthan. We didn't get to analyze the beads themselves because it is a destructive analysis, but we found that we did neutron activation on these from 2 sites, well, Harappa, Mohenjo-daro, 2 sites in Sindh and Harappa, and found that the majority of these are coming from far northern Pakistan, and maybe even a few examples from Jobe itself. Now, Harappan steatite. This is the focus of the biggest study that I've done. Harappans use steatite, which is a soft stone, which is basically the massive form of the mineral tau, to make the famous seals, tablets, and beads. What you have are bead blanks there in the center, and raw steatite comes in many different colors, but it's all basically talc. Steatite deposits are found in every major region surrounding the Indus Valley. I talked about the source at Las Bela. And I collected samples from multiple sources in each region. Okay, these were analyzed by neutron activation at the University of Wisconsin-Madison. I studied raw, unheated debris left behind at some sites. And I studied the beads themselves with a special data set that we've recently developed. What we found was the large majority, not just in Sindh, but the large majority at all sites, the large majority of steatite beads and the raw material come from just a few sites located in northern Pakistan, in the KPK district. Now, why is that, given that there are perfectly good sources, apparently, of steatite is near, particularly for Sindh, as near as Las Bela. You saw the carvings of these. You can carve whatever you like. It's beautiful. Well, the reason is, well, notice on the left side here is raw steatite, which is, in its raw form, it's in many different colors, red, black, green. But look at the finished artifacts. They're all white. The reason that they're white is they've been heated to very high temperatures. It thermally decomposes the talc and turns it white. Now that's great, but what I learned from experimental studies, I took steatite from all those different sources that I collected, heated them experimentally, and found that they don't all turn white. And those that do just happen to be the very same deposits located in northern Pakistan. Las Bela steatite is fantastic for carving, but if you want a white Harappan seal or a white bead, it's not what you would use, and so the Harappans didn't. And I'm running short of time. I can't go into detail about a lot of other things, but resources that are clearly very important here in Sindh are chert from the Rory Hills and other sources in Sindh Kholistan. You find these at sites like we found these were found at Aladino from the 1970s, and grinding stones. You find grinding stone. This is Pop sandstone from Mohenjo-daro. Now, Pop sandstone occurs in the Suleiman range north of it, but it also occurs in the Pop range itself, which is in Las Bela, Balochistan, and that's probably the nearest source. as I said, most of this research is found at harappa.com, and you can get some of it there. But in summary, basically, you've got these different sub-areas located in the hills and ranges surrounding the Indus Basin that seem to supply the majority of the raw materials, the stone and metal raw materials, in each of these areas to sites adjacent to those regions. However, you do have certain key materials like steatite, chert, agate, that are traded widely across the entire Indus Valley. And so this is merely a summary. It's actually quite complex, and again, if you want to find more details in this, I suggest you look at my book or papers, and or invite me back, and I'm happy to give you a more detailed, longer talk. But
सब लोगों ने ये presentation उतनी ही enjoy की होगी जितनी मैंने की है. We really enjoyed your presentation like always. And my special thanks to Dr. Mark Nair and Randall Law for taking out time from the busy schedule of their fieldwork at Aladino. So my special thanks to both of you. And now comes our most favorite speaker, Dr. Zulfikar Ali Talorosa. Title of his paper is Manikani Talputones in Sindh, which is another interesting topic, and we come back to the historic period from Harappa. Dr. Zulfikar Ali Talorosa is an anthropologist and author of about 15 books. He teaches at the Department of Development Studies at the Pakistan Institute of Development Economics, PIDE, Islamabad. His main area of interest are culture, religion, art, and the heritage of Pakistan, especially of Sindh, Punjab, Balochistan, KP, and Gilgit-Baltistan. Dr. Taloro has taken part in numerous international workshops, seminars, and conferences, both in the country and abroad. Additionally, he regularly contributes articles about Pakistan heritage to leading English newspapers, and I think आप लोग इसके बाद ज़रूर पढ़ना शुरू कर देंगे, इनकी इतनी interesting talk होती है. He has conducted research on rock art and hero stones in Sindh, which are located in two different regions of the area. Rock art can be found in various valleys of the Kirthar, Baddu, and Lakhi mountain ranges. Dr. Taloro has explored these rugged terrains to document the rock art. He has also extensively traveled throughout the Thar Desert to document the disappearing visual heritage of the region, including Sati, hero stones, Jain and Hindu temples, as well as the folk deities of the desert. His forthcoming book on this topic is expected to be released in 2025. So now, Dr. Zulfikar Taloro, I would like to request you to please.
First of all, I would like to thank the advisory committee of Dr. N.A. Baloch Institute of Heritage Research to invite me to share my research that I have been doing in Sindh on different topic. Before I discuss on Mankani Talpurs in Sindh, let me tell you that this information has been extracted from my forthcoming book that is on Talpurs. The title of the book is From Brick to Stone, Perspectives on Funerary Monuments of Talpurs. So we know a lot about the history of Talpurs, but not much is known about their funerary monuments. So in today's presentation, I will be talking about Mankani Talpurs. So before I discuss their funerary monuments, I just wanted to give you a very brief introduction or insight into Mankani Talpurs. So this is how I will go along. First, I will give you a brief introduction of Mankani Talpurs, followed by distribution of Mankani Talpur tombs in Sindh, and then finally I will conclude. And in conclusion, I will discuss two different forms of decoration found in Mankani Talpurs, one located in western Sindh and other in southern Sindh. So if you look at this slide, you will get to know that Mankanis are descendants of Mir Manik Khan. as we say in Sindhi we say Manik. अंग्रेजी में this is what मैं यही चुना दो. So सिंधी में चुना है Manik, and when we say in English Manik or Manikani, so actually it is Manikani. ठीक है ना? Roon it is not na. Ra is basically is used. So basically for this research I relied on both sources, primary as well as secondary. I visited almost every historical necropolis that were connected or associated with Manikanis. It was in 2001 that I first visited Mankani, Thalpur cemeteries in Batin. And those were known as Mir Abdullah jo Qabristan, Sayyid Ahmad Shah jo Qabristan, and Ketyum. And there is a history behind each and every site. So, we know from secondary sources that the ancestor of Thalpur of Sindh, Mir Suleiman, popularly known as Kakko, or as we read or see the name on the Persian inscriptions, Kakka Khan Baloch. He had 8 sons. Why basically I am reading these names? These are important to know that, you know, the descendants of Mir Suleiman ruled all over the Sindh. I will come to this point later on. So he had 8 sons: Hotak, Bijar, Manik, Ali, Jeevan, Miran, Dafar and Safar. So, अब देखिए मशहूर हुई, the Mir Fateh Ali Khan was basically founder of Thalpur dynasty. When they overthrew the Kalhodas and they defeated Kalhodas in the battle of Halani. So Onnokopoe Sindh was divided into 3 kingdoms: Hyderabad, Mirpur and Khairpur. But we do not know much about other families or houses that also ruled in other parts of Sindh. The third, as I just told you, the third house or the kingdom was Mir Shora or Khairpur, Mirs as we call it. And the fourth was Khanpur state, and it was founded by Mir Mubarak Khan Thalpur, and who was son of Mir Ali. I just basically share the names of 8 sons of Mir Kakka Khan. So one of sons was Mir Ali. So he was son of Mir Ali. The most prominent cemetery in Samaro is Mir Mubarak Khan Thalpur site. It is about 12 kilometers north of Samaro town, and in this cemetery, in the cemetery of Mir Mubarak Khan, we find the graves of not only Mir Mubarak Khan but also his 3 sons, Tajo, Aludo and Masudo. Interestingly, we see the inscription on all 3 graves. Apart from Mir Mubarak Khan, there are other graves as well. For instance, the grave of brother of Mir Mubarak Khan, Darya Khan, after whom we have Darya Khanani lineage of Thalpurs. And then there is a grave of Yaro Fakir, who died in 1748 as per inscription on his grave in 1161. So he was son of Mir Jeevan Khan, the 4th son of Mir Kakka Khan. And the descendants of Yaro is called Yarani. So let's move to another slide. So now I'm discussing about Mir Manik. So we know that Mir Manik had 4 sons. Why names are important? So as anthropologists, we are very interested in the genealogy and the names. to establish or connect missing links. Mir Alayar, Mir Chutto, Mir Sandad, and Mir Jeevan. And all are buried in the necropolis or the cemetery of Mir Alayar Khan Talpur at Drigbala in Dadus Johid Taluka. It is also called Mir Alayar Jakuba. So then if we wanted to discuss about Mir Al-Hayar, Mir Al-Hayar had 3 sons, Mir Masood, Mir Jado and Mir Rajo. If you look at this slide, you can see the inscription that is on the grave of Mir Masood, which is located at Chitori. And if you read this inscription, you will get to know that it is written that he died in 1166 Hijri, meaning in 754. And he basically served Mir Murad Yab Khan Kaloro, the son of Mir Nur Muhammad. So this is a very interesting inscription, and we know a lot of interesting information from this slab. So now let's come to the distribution of Talpur tombs in Sindh. I'm just giving you a general view of the Talpur tombs. So there are 4 royal cemeteries of Shahzadani. I may miss some, but the 4 are main, including the 2 clusters of tombs at Hirabad in Hyderabad, and followed by Khudabad 2 near Khudabad Sani, as we call, near Hala and Kubo Shahdad near Shahpur Chakar in Sangar, and then Sorabani, the sub-lineage of Shahzadani, are all buried in Qadr Baksha Kuba in Rohri Taluka in Sakhar. And the descendants of Mir Shaho Khan, also sometimes pronounced Shahu, but it is Shahu. So the descendants of Shahu are called Shahwani, the founders of Tando Muhammad Khan. And their 2 cemeteries are located, one at Fatehbad and another at Tando Muhammad Khan town. And the grave of Mir Shah actually is located in the Drigbala necropolis. So this basically map shows the different districts of Sindh. So that if we talk about the distribution of the monuments of the Mankang Talpurs, they are mainly located in 4 districts. Badin, the earliest monuments are located in Johi at Drigbala, and then we have some graveyards in Tando Muhammad Khan, Badin, and Mirpur Khas. So let me just show you the slides. So these are basically some of the very well-known necropolises of Mankang Talpurs. The earliest one is located at Drigbala, Mir Alayar Jakuba, followed by Chitori in Mirpur Khas, Imam Gah in Tando Muhammad Khan town, in Tando Muhammad Khan Shahr mein aaye. This is the Mir Abdullah, I added Shah, it's a typo. Mir Abdullah Shah Talpur near Shadi Large, Sayyid Ahmad Shah near Shadi Large, and Ketum. It was basically first capital of the Tharo Khan, which is located on the right bank of the river Puran near Shadi Large, and Pir Nazar Muhammad Shah near Tando Muhammad Khan, where Bagani, a sub-lineage of Mankani, the dignitaries or the descendants of Baganis are buried in this graveyard. And the last is Pir or Mio Aman Shah, also called Amanullah Shah, near Bakar Nizamani to Muhammad Khan. So now let's discuss one by one all the 6 graveyards. So I just show you slides that basically talked about 8, but I will focus on the 6. So in the cemetery of Mir Alayar, we have the burial places are the most important dignitaries, which include Mir Alayar Khan Talpur, Mir Chutto, Mir Sandar, Mir Shah. Basically, the grave of Mir Shah is also located there. And apart from Talpurs, there are other tombs as well. those who served the basically Talpurs. That include Allah Hadito Suryo and Khairwama Jamali. The list is very extensive and long actually. So idea was to basically to introduce about these lesser known monuments of Manakani Talpurs. Although we know about Chitori and Drigbala, but not about others. So these are another view of Drigbala graveyard. And now Chitori, one of the most impressive symmetry in terms of decoration, the stone carving. So most of the structures are stone, beautifully engraved. So the prominent tombs include Mir Masu, Mir Rajo, Mir Jado, Mir Alayar Sani II, Mir Fatah Khan, Mir Tharo, Mir Sher Muhammad, Sher Singh, the Lion of Singh, and many others. But interestingly, when you visit these graveyards, you learn a lot actually. The main idea of visiting all these sites is to know and find the inscriptions. Most of the tombs have inscriptions. For instance, if you look at this is a canopy, as we call in Sindhi, chhatri or chhatri. On one of the columns or the pillars of the chhatri is inscription, which bears the name of Mir Jado, the son of Mir Alayar, who died in 1173 Hijri in 1760. And he had 4 sons, Mir Alayar, Mir Mirzo, Mir Peroz, Mir Hamza, and Mir Sahab Khan. So in this Chitori, the descendants of Mir Masu are basically buried. So now this is another interesting structure that belongs to Mir Rajo, son of Mir Alayar, who died in 1795. Now we move, another impressive structure that belongs to Mir Fatah Khan, who was killed by Kalhodas. The tomb was built in 1787. In Persian inscription, we know that there is a date of the construction of the structure and a date of the when he died. So another, apart from Drigbala, Chitori, now we come to the lesser known graveyard, which is locally called Sayyid Armio Amanla Shah Kabristan. In this graveyard are buried the descendants of Mir Jado, the son of Mir Alayar. So actually all the information introduced from the descendants of Manakani Talpurs, and some information is available also in secondary sources, but most of the information come from the primary sources. So Mir Peroz was son of Mir Jado, and this cemetery, most of the stone carved graves belong to the descendants of Mir Jado. So this is the basically list of those who are buried in Mio Aman Shah graveyard, and this is some graves are very beautiful marble graves. Most of the graves are inscribed, and this is all the names after those who are buried in the. And now another graveyard, Mir Abdullah Talpur graveyard near Shabilard. It is located about 3 kilometers north of Shabilard, a small town in Badin district. In this Mir Abdullah Talpur cemetery, there were 3 canopies. Now all actually caved in, and one can see a few inscribed graves. One of the most important graves belonged to Mir Valio, or as we say Mir Valia, as it is written on the grave. In Sindhi you see Mir Valio. He was son of Mir Bago. And apart from this Mir Abdullah cemetery, another nearby cemetery is that of Sayyid Ahmad Shah. We know from the secondary sources and also from the primary sources that he first served Mia Abdul Nabi Kalhoro and later on Mir Tharo Khan. In this cemetery, there are a few inscribed graves. For instance, I still remember the names Sobho Khaskeli, Kabir Khidmatgar, Kabul, and so many others. So, and not only names but also dates of their death. And the most important site that are associated with Mankani Talpurs is K2. This site is believed to be the first seat of power of Mankani Talpurs, and it is basically the place which was known for arts and culture. It was center of learning, and it was ruled by Mir Tharo Khan. So now we can see a few crumbling structures, but from Dr. Baloch, N.A. Baloch's book, Rehan Hiran Khan, Volume 1, we know that in one of the structures, Mir Feroz and Mir Ghulam Ahmad and Mir Ali Murad are buried. So now let me conclude by saying that if we compare Mankani Talpurs, which are located in Dadu district, all the structures are decorated with beautiful mural paintings or wall paintings. And interestingly, some of the themes are very interesting. Most of the themes include folk romances. For instance, the romances of the Soni Mehar, Sassi Pono, Mumal Rano, Leela Chanesar, and so many others. And apart from folk romances, we also see some of the interesting battle scenes. So I believe that some of the battle scenes may represent the actual battles that took place during the Kalhodas. And this battle scene may represent either one of the battles which were fought between Kalhodas and Mir Abdullah Broi, the Khan of Kalar, or Mir Yar Muhammad or Kesar Khan Pawar. So we should not rule out the basically local history if we wanted to study these images. And these are some of the beautiful paintings. And now we move again to Mirpur Khas, Badin, and other districts where the tombs of Mankani Talpurs are located. Most of the tombs which are located in those districts are built of stone. Stone were mainly used in those structures. There are a few exceptions, but they mostly the stone got used, and the decoration is impressive. You can see in these images. So this is all that I wanted to share. Thank you very much.